Ambassador Hyun-woo walked into the Great Council chamber with steady steps. The massive room was filled with alien beings from across the galaxy. Some looked like walking crystals. Others had spikes covering their skin. A few floated in the air inside glass bubbles filled with strange gas. All of them were staring at him with confusion. He had been Earth's representative to the Galactic Council for 2 years now. In that time, he had seen many strange looks. Humans were still the newest members of this ancient alliance. Most alien species had been traveling between stars for thousands of years. Humans had only joined 5 years ago after finally developing faster-than-light travel. The other species often found human behavior puzzling. They did not understand why humans kept animals as pets. They were confused about human music and art. They thought human food was too complicated. But today's request would be the strangest one yet. Hyun-woo stood at the speaking platform in the center of the chamber. Above him, a massive hologram showed his face so all the delegates could see him clearly. He cleared his throat and began to speak. "Honored delegates," he said in a calm voice, "today I come before you with a simple request. Humanity wishes to use the forest moon orbiting Kepler 442c for recreational purposes." The chamber filled with clicking, buzzing, and whistling sounds as the aliens talked among themselves. This seemed normal enough. Many species used empty planets for recreation. "We request permission to establish a temporary settlement there," Hyun-woo continued. "The settlement will house up to 50 humans at a time. They will stay for periods ranging from 1 week to 1 month. Again, this seemed reasonable. The Galactic Council often approved such requests. Tourism was common among spacefaring civilizations. Then Hyun-woo said the words that would change everything. "The humans will live there without any advanced technology. No climate control, no defensive barriers, no communication systems. They will sleep outside under the open sky and build their own shelters using only basic tools and natural materials." The chamber fell completely silent. Zethmar, the crystalline, representative from the Velkari Empire, was the first to speak. Their voice came through translation devices as a series of musical chimes. "Ambassador," Zethmar said slowly, "please clarify your request. Are you asking permission to exile humans to this moon as punishment for crimes?" "No," Hyun-woo replied. "This is voluntary. Humans want to do this for enjoyment." More confused sounds filled the chamber. Kiksval, the Thornian delegate covered in natural armor spikes, leaned forward in their seat. "You wish to abandon the safety of proper shelter?" Kiksval asked. "To risk exposure to weather, wild animals, and disease? This sounds like a form of torture." Hyun-woo had expected this reaction. He had spent weeks preparing for these questions. "It is called camping," he explained. "Humans have practiced this activity for thousands of years. Even after we developed cities and advanced technology, we continued camping as a way to connect with nature." Connect with nature? This came from Veltara, a floating jellyfish-like being from the ocean world of Aquanus. Nature is something to be overcome and controlled. Why would anyone want to connect with it? "For humans," Hyun-woo said, "spending time in natural environments improves our mental health. It makes us more creative and better at solving problems. It strengthens our social bonds and reduces stress." The chamber erupted in discussion. Translation devices worked overtime as dozens of species tried to understand this bizarre human concept. Next, Gorin, the insect-like representative from the hive worlds, clicked their mandibles loudly to get attention. "In our society," they said, "any individual who voluntarily left the safety of the hive would be considered mentally damaged. Are you saying humans regularly engage in self-destructive behavior?" "It is not self-destructive," Hyun-woo said patiently. "Humans are very good at surviving in natural environments. We evolved on a planet with dangerous weather, predators, and limited resources. These skills are still part of who we are." But why practice them when you have technology? Asked Zethmar. Surely your advanced civilization has moved beyond such primitive needs. Hyun-woo smiled. This was the heart of the matter. We have found that the more advanced our technology becomes, the more important it is to remember our connection to the natural world. Camping helps us maintain balance in our lives. Dr. Kethamira, a scholarly alien with 4 eyes and gray skin, spoke from the observation deck. I have studied human psychology extensively, she said. Your species shows unusual stress responses when confined to artificial environments for long periods. Is this camping activity a medical necessity? In a way, yes, Hyun-woo admitted. Humans who never experience natural environments often develop what we call cabin fever or nature deficit disorder. They become anxious, depressed, and less creative. The delegates looked at each other with growing confusion. Most advanced civilizations considered the complete separation from nature to be a sign of progress. They lived in perfectly controlled environments where weather, temperature, and even air composition were managed by computers. This is most unusual, said Elder Korth from the Ancient Collective. In our 10,000 years of galactic civilization, no species has ever requested permission to voluntarily reduce their technological capabilities. We are not reducing our capabilities, Hyun-woo explained. We are choosing not to use certain technologies temporarily. The humans who go camping will still have emergency communication devices and medical supplies. They will simply choose to build shelters with their hands instead of using construction robots. But why? Veltara asked again. What possible advantage could this provide? Hyun-woo paused, choosing his words carefully. Camping teaches humans to be resourceful and adaptable. It reminds us that we can survive and thrive even when our usual tools are not available. It connects us to our evolutionary past and helps us appreciate the present. The chamber buzzed with discussion for several minutes. Finally, Zethmar called for order. This request is highly unusual, they announced. However, the forest moon you have chosen is uninhabited and has no strategic value. The Galactic Council sees no harm in allowing humans to engage in this strange behavior, provided you take full responsibility for any consequences. We accept full responsibility, Hyun-woo said. Very well, Zethmar declared. Permission is granted for a 1-year trial period. The Galactic Council will monitor your progress with great interest. As the session ended and delegates began filing out of the chamber, Hyun-woo heard fragments of conversation in dozens of alien languages. All of them expressed the same sentiment. Confusion about why any intelligent species would choose to make life harder for themselves. Hyun-woo knew they would understand eventually. Humans had a way of surprising the galaxy with their unusual approaches to common problems. Soon, these same aliens would witness something that would challenge their basic assumptions about survival, technology, and what it meant to be truly advanced. The camping expedition would begin in 3 weeks. Hyun-woo could hardly wait to see their reactions when they discovered what humans could accomplish with nothing but basic tools, natural materials, and the ancient skills that had carried them from caves to starships. The galaxy was about to learn that sometimes the most advanced thing you could do was to remember how to live simply. The transport ship broke through the clouds above Kepler 442c's forest moon 3 weeks later. Inside the passenger compartment, 4 humans checked their equipment one final time. They had been preparing for this moment since receiving approval from the Galactic Council. Dae-hyun looked out the window at the alien landscape below. Massive trees stretched as far as he could see. Their bark was blue instead of brown, and their leaves glowed with a soft light that pulsed like a heartbeat. 2 suns hung in the purple sky, casting strange shadows across the forest floor. Beautiful, he said quietly. Dae-hyun had been camping since he was a child growing up in the mountains of Korea. He had slept under stars on 6 different continents, back on Earth. But this would be his first time camping on an alien world. Sitting across from him, So-Young studied readings on her tablet. As a structural engineer, she was used to building with steel and concrete. Today, she would have to work with wood and stone. The challenge excited her. "The gravity is slightly lighter than Earth," she reported. "That will make construction easier. The atmosphere is safe to breathe, but the oxygen content is a bit higher. We might feel energetic for the first few days." Minho, their botanist, was already taking notes about the plant life visible through the window. "The bioluminescence is fascinating," he said. "I wonder what causes it. And look at those root systems. They seem to connect multiple trees together." The fourth member of their team, Yoon-ji, recorded everything with her camera. As a cultural anthropologist, her job was to document how humans adapted to this alien environment. She also wanted to capture the aliens' reactions to human camping methods. "The orbital stations are already watching us," she said, pointing to the small dots visible in the sky above them. "Every major species has sent observers. They're expecting us to fail within days." The transport ship's captain, a professional pilot from the Galactic Transport Guild, turned to address his passengers. His species looked like upright lizards with golden scales. "I still think you are making a mistake," Captain Rexelon said, through his translator. "This moon has dangerous weather. The native animals are unpredictable. There are no emergency shelters for hundreds of kilometers. Are you certain you do not want to reconsider?" "We're certain," Dae-hyun replied with a smile. "Thank you for your concern, but this is exactly what we wanted." Captain Rexelon shook his head in confusion. "I will return in 1 week to check on you. If you activate your emergency beacon, rescue ships can reach you in 6 hours." "We won't need rescue," So-Young said confidently. The ship landed in a small clearing near a stream. The 4 humans gathered their backpacks and equipment bags. Their gear looked primitive compared to the high-tech supplies used by other galactic species. Instead of energy weapons, they carried simple knives and hand tools. Instead of portable shelters that assembled themselves, they had rolls of canvas and rope. Instead of food synthesizers, they packed dried meals and water purification tablets. Captain Rexelon watched them unload with growing concern. "Your supplies seem insufficient," he said. "They're perfect for what we need," Dae-hyun assured him. As the transport ship lifted off and disappeared into the purple sky, the 4 humans found themselves alone on an alien world. The forest around them was alive with sounds. Strange bird-like creatures called from the treetops. Something large crashed through the underbrush in the distance. The stream babbled over rocks that sparkled with embedded crystals. "This is incredible," Minho said, kneeling beside the water. He pulled out a small testing kit and checked the stream's chemistry. "The water is clean, a bit more mineral content than Earth water, but perfectly safe to drink after filtration." So-Young was already studying the trees and rocks around the clearing. "Good wind protection from the hills on 3 sides," she noted. "The ground slopes slightly toward the stream for drainage. Morning sun from the east, evening sun from the west. This is an excellent campsite." Yoon-ji set up her recording equipment to document their first day. High above them, she knew alien observers were watching through powerful telescopes. They were probably placing bets on how quickly the humans would give up and call for rescue. Dae-hyun shouldered his pack and looked deeper into the forest. "Let's explore a bit before we start setting up camp. I want to understand our environment better." They hiked along the stream for half an hour, taking notes and samples. The forest was unlike anything on Earth, but the basic principles were the same. Trees competed for sunlight. Plants grew where water collected. Animals made paths between food sources and shelter. "Look at this," Minho called out, pointing to a cluster of fruit-bearing vines. "These might be edible. I'll need to run some tests, but the biochemistry looks promising." So-Young examined the way the alien trees grew. "Their branches interweave naturally," she observed. "It's like they're designed to support each other. We could use that in our shelter design." As they explored, they discovered that the forest was more complex than it appeared from orbit. There were 3 distinct levels: the high canopy, where Most of the glowing leaves grew, a middle layer of smaller trees and large bushes, and the forest floor where ferns and mosses created a thick carpet. "It's like a natural apartment building," Yunji commented. "Different species live at different levels." They also found signs of animal life everywhere: large hoof prints in the mud near the stream, scratch marks on tree bark, nests built from woven grasses. But most interesting were the trails that seemed to connect different parts of the forest in a logical network. "The animals here are intelligent," Dae-hyun said, studying a particularly well-designed path that avoided steep slopes and dangerous terrain. "These trails show planning and cooperation." When they returned to their landing site, the afternoon was growing late. The twin suns were beginning to set, and the forest's bioluminescence was becoming brighter in response to the dimming natural light. "Time to make camp," Dae-hyun announced. The four humans began unpacking their supplies. Within minutes, they were working together with the smooth coordination that comes from years of camping experience. Dae-hyun selected the best locations for their tents. So-young began gathering stones to build a fire pit. Min-ho collected firewood and tested it for burning properties. Yunji set up a small weather station to monitor local conditions. High above them, alien observers watched in fascination as the humans began transforming the empty clearing into something resembling a small village. What they were seeing challenged everything they believed about survival in hostile environments. "They're not just making shelter," reported Surveillance Officer Kethon to the Velkari command ship. "They're organizing the space, creating different areas for different activities. It's almost like they're establishing a tiny civilization." In the Thornian observation post, military analyst Nix Tar studied the humans' movements. "Notice how they position everything. The fire pit is downwind from the sleeping area but uphill from the stream. The food preparation area is separate from both. They're thinking several steps ahead." Dr. Keth Mira, monitoring from the research vessel, made detailed notes about human behavior. "They show no signs of stress or fear," she reported. "Their heart rates are actually lower than normal. They appear to be enjoying themselves." As darkness fell, the humans sat around their small campfire eating a simple meal of dried foods, rehydrated with stream water. The alien forest came, alive around them with new sounds and lights. Creatures that slept during the day were beginning to wake up. "Tomorrow we start building something more permanent," Dae-hyun said, staring into the flames. "Something that will show the galaxy what humans can really do." Above them, a dozen species continued their observations, completely unaware that they were about to witness something that would change their understanding of survival, adaptation, and the true meaning of advanced civilization. The camping expedition had officially begun. On the third morning, Surveillance Officer Kethon stared at his monitoring screens in disbelief. He had been watching the human camping expedition for 72 hours straight. What he saw made no sense according to everything he knew about. "Survival in hostile environments! Command," he transmitted to the Velkari mothership. "The humans are not behaving as predicted." "Explain," came the reply from Admiral Zexathara. "They should be struggling to find food and water. They should be exhausted from sleeping on the ground. They should be calling for rescue by now." Kethon paused, checking his readings again. Instead, they appeared to be thriving. Down on the forest moon, Dae-hyun woke before dawn, as he always did when camping. The alien forest was peaceful in the early morning hours. Both suns were still below the horizon, and the bioluminescent plants provided a gentle blue-green glow that reminded him of moonlight on Earth. He quietly left his tent and walked to the stream to wash his face. The water was cold and refreshing. As he dried himself with a small towel, he noticed fresh animal tracks in the mud nearby. Something large had come to drink during the night, but it had kept a respectful distance from the human camp. Smart animals, he thought. They could sense that humans were not prey, but they also recognized that humans were something new and potentially dangerous. When he returned to the camp, He found So Young already awake and sketching designs in a notebook. She had been studying the local trees and rocks, planning something ambitious. "Good morning," she whispered, not wanting to wake Minho and Yunji. "I think I know how to build something amazing here." She showed him her sketches. Instead of simple tents and a fire pit, she had designed a multi-level structure that would work with the natural forest instead of fighting against it. The trees here grow in connected clusters, she explained. Their root systems share nutrients and information. If we build our shelter to connect with their network, we can create something that becomes part of the ecosystem. Dae-hyun studied her drawings. As someone who had built wilderness shelters on Earth for 20 years, he could see the genius in her design. "This would be more than camping," he said. "This would be architecture." "Exactly." So Young smiled. "Let's show the galaxy what humans can really build." When Minho and Yunji woke up, they found their teammates already working on the new project. Dae-hyun was selecting trees that could serve as natural support posts. So Young was gathering stones from the stream to create foundation platforms. "What are you building?" Minho asked. "Something incredible," Yunji said, already recording everything with her camera. "This is going to be the most documented camping trip in galactic history." By midday, they had cleared and leveled a construction area without damaging any of the local plants. So Young had designed the project so that every human addition would actually help the forest ecosystem. Their gray water would feed the trees. Their compost would enrich the soil. Their structures would provide new habitats for small animals. Minho used his botanical knowledge to identify which plants could be safely transplanted and which ones produced useful materials. He found vines that were stronger than rope when properly prepared. He discovered mud that dried harder than concrete when mixed with certain plant fibers. He located trees that would allow small branches to be harvested without harming the overall organism. "It's like the forest wants to help us," he told the others. "Every problem we encounter has a natural solution nearby." Meanwhile, the alien observers were becoming increasingly confused. Dr. Kethmira transmitted her daily report to the Galactic Science Council. "The humans are not simply surviving. They are improving their environment. Their campsite now has better drainage than many permanent settlements. Their water filtration system produces cleaner liquid than our ship recyclers. Their waste management creates zero environmental impact." Military analyst Nick Starr was studying the tactical implications of human construction methods. "They are building defensive positions without appearing to build defenses," he reported. "Every structure serves multiple purposes. The raised sleeping platforms protect against ground predators while providing storage space underneath. The cooking area is positioned for maximum security while appearing completely peaceful. But it was alien anthropologist Kelmira who made the most important observation. "They are not working like most intelligent species," she transmitted. "Most civilizations approach survival challenges with grim determination and maximum efficiency. These humans are playing." This was true. As Dae-hyun and his team built their forest settlement, they laughed and joked like children building a treehouse. When they made mistakes, they turned them into opportunities for creative solutions. When they faced problems, they treated them as interesting puzzles to solve. "Hand me that rope," So Young called to Minho as she worked on the second level of their main shelter. "Which rope?" he replied. "The vine rope, the grass rope, or the bark rope?" "The vine rope. The bark rope is too stiff for this joint, and we need the grass rope for the water collection system." Yunji documented this conversation with fascination. "They have created 3 different types of rope from local materials," she noted in her journal. "Each one is optimized for specific uses. This level of material science should require laboratory analysis and computer modeling. But the humans were doing it through experience, intuition, and trial and error." They understood materials the way their ancestors had understood them for thousands of years, before technology made such knowledge seem unnecessary. By the end of the third day, their campsite had been transformed into something that amazed even the humans themselves. The main shelter was a two-story structure built around and through a cluster of trees. The sleeping area was elevated and weatherproof. The cooking and eating area was sheltered but open to airflow. A separate workshop area allowed for tool maintenance and material preparation. Most impressive was the water system. So-Young had engineered a series of bamboo-like pipes and collection pools that provided fresh running water throughout the settlement. The system was gravity-fed from a spring she had discovered higher up the hillside. It required no power source and actually improved the local water flow by creating new channels that prevented erosion. "This is impossible," transmitted Zethmar from the Velkari observation post. "They are creating advanced infrastructure using Stone Age tools. Our engineers could not duplicate this without computer assistance and heavy machinery." That evening, as the four humans sat around their fire eating a dinner that included both earth rations and carefully tested local foods, they discussed the next day's projects. "I want to build a workshop," Dae-hyun said, "somewhere we can make better tools and maybe some furniture. I've identified 17 edible plants and 5 that have medicinal properties," Min-ho reported. "Tomorrow I want to start a garden, not just for food, but to create a sustainable ecosystem that will last long after we leave." "The local animals are getting more curious," Yoonji observed. "I saw some bird-like creatures watching us from the trees today. They seem interested." "In our construction methods, maybe we can learn from them too," So-Young suggested. "I noticed their nests use some clever engineering principles we could adapt." High above them, representatives from a dozen alien species continued their observations. What had started as a simple monitoring mission was becoming the most important anthropological study in galactic history. The humans were not just surviving in a hostile environment. They were turning it into a home. And they were doing it with a joy and creativity that no other species had ever demonstrated in similar circumstances. Tomorrow would bring even greater surprises. On the 10th day, something remarkable happened that would be talked about in alien universities for generations to come. The local wildlife began approaching the human settlement not as enemies or prey, but as curious neighbors. It started with the bird-like creatures. They had 6 wings instead of 4 and feathers that changed color based on their mood. For days, they had watched the humans from a safe distance, chattering among themselves in musical tones. Min-ho was working in his garden when the first one landed nearby. It was about the size of an earth pigeon, but much more intelligent. The creature studied the neat rows of transplanted alien vegetables and the composting system that Min-ho had built from fallen logs and leaves. "Hello there," Min-ho said softly, not wanting to frighten it away. The bird creature tilted its head and made a soft, trilling sound. Then it flew to a nearby plant and began demonstrating something. It picked up small insects that were harmful to the vegetables and ate them, then looked at Min-ho as if to say, "See, I can help." Within an hour, a dozen of the bird creatures were working alongside Min-ho, controlling garden pests in exchange for the seeds and fruits he offered them. It was the beginning of the first interspecies agricultural partnership in recorded galactic history. The larger animals took longer to approach, but they were equally curious. The 6-legged grazers that looked like a cross between deer and antelope began coming to the edge of the settlement at dawn and dusk. They discovered that Min-ho's garden produced food sources that did not compete with their natural diet, but actually complemented it. "They're like living lawn mowers," So-Young observed as she watched them carefully trim the grass around the settlement without disturbing any of the important plants. Even more impressive were the predators. The thorn cats, which looked like large felines covered in protective spines, gave the human settlement a wide berth, but did not flee the area. Instead, they seemed to understand that the humans had claimed this territory and deserved respect. "They recognize us as fellow apex predators," Dae-hyun explained to Yoon-ji as she documented their behavior. But they also sensed that we're not competing for the same resources. By this time, Dae-hyun's construction project had grown beyond anything the alien observers thought possible. What had started as a simple campsite was becoming a three-dimensional marvel of bioarchitecture. The main structure now rose 4 levels into the forest canopy. Each level served different purposes and worked with the natural ecosystem rather than dominating it. The ground level contained workshops, storage areas, and the main cooking facilities. The second level held sleeping quarters and a library, where they kept their growing collection of notes about local plants and animals. The third level was an observation deck that provided stunning views of the surrounding forest. The fourth level was still under construction, but it was planned as a communications center and emergency beacon station. Most remarkable was how the structure connected to the forest itself. Instead of cutting down trees, Dae-hyun had built around and through them. Living branches were incorporated into the framework, creating a building that was part human engineering and part natural growth. "It's like they're weaving civilization into the ecosystem," reported Dr. Kethamira to the Galactic Science Council. "Every human addition makes the forest more diverse and stable, not less." The water systems So Young had designed were equally impressive. She had created a network of channels, pools, and filtration systems that provided fresh water throughout the settlement, while also serving the needs of local wildlife. Animals from across the forest were beginning to visit the settlement too. "Use these improved water sources. The humans have become ecosystem engineers," she reported. "They're not just living in the forest, they're improving it." But perhaps the most astounding aspect of the human settlement was its defensive capabilities. Although it looked peaceful and welcoming, military analyst Nixtar recognized it as one of the most sophisticated fortifications he had ever studied. "They have created overlapping fields of observation and fire," he transmitted to Thornian High. "Command. Multiple escape routes on every level. Natural camouflage that makes the structure nearly invisible from above. Supply lines that cannot be cut without destroying the entire forest, and they did it all while appearing to build nothing more than a recreational shelter." The fort was designed according to principles that dated back thousands of years on Earth, but adapted for alien conditions with creativity that amazed even experienced military engineers. Every platform could serve as a defensive position. Every walkway provided cover and concealment. Every entrance was carefully controlled without appearing restricted. Yet the most important defense was psychological. The settlement looked so peaceful and natural that potential enemies would not recognize it as a military target until it was too late. On the evening of the 10th day, as the twin suns set through the glowing forest canopy, the 4 humans gathered on their observation deck to review their progress. "We've built something amazing," Yoon-ji said, recording the view from their treetop platform. "But I think we've also discovered something important about what makes humans different from other species." "What's that?" Dae-hyun asked. "Other species see survival and comfort as opposites," she explained. "They think you have to choose between safety and beauty, between efficiency and art, between civilization and nature. We've proven that humans don't have to choose." She was right. The forest fort was simultaneously a survival shelter, a work of art, a scientific research station, and a demonstration of sustainable living. It was beautiful and functional, natural and engineered, primitive and advanced. "Look at the animals," Minho said, pointing to the various creatures that had made their homes in and around the human settlement. "They're not afraid of us anymore. They see us as part of their world." Indeed, the settlement had become a focal point for local wildlife. The improved water sources attracted animals from across the forest. The garden provided food for herbivores and the predators that hunted them. The multi-level structure created new habitats for birds, small mammals, and climbing creatures. "We haven't conquered this environment," So Young realized. "We've joined it." High above them, alien observers continued their round-the-clock monitoring. What they were seeing challenged every assumption about the relationship between intelligence and nature, between technology and environment, between civilization and wilderness. "Impossible," transmitted Admiral Zexathara from the Velkari mothership. "They are creating infrastructure that rivals our most advanced settlements, using nothing but hand tools and local materials. How is this possible?" The answer was something that no other galactic species had ever discovered. Humans were still connected to their evolutionary past in ways that made them uniquely adaptable. They could think like engineers and feel like animals. They could plan like scientists and work like artists. They could be civilized and wild at the same time. As the forest settled into its nightly routine, the bioluminescent plants began their evening display. The human settlement glowed softly in harmony with the natural light show, looking less like an alien intrusion and more like a natural part of the forest's beauty. Tomorrow would bring new challenges and new discoveries. But tonight, 4 humans sat in their treetop fort, surrounded by alien wildlife, living in perfect harmony with a world that should have been hostile to them. The galaxy was learning that humans didn't just adapt to new environments. They made those environments better. The weather warning came on the 15th day. Every orbital station around Kepler 442c detected the massive storm system approaching from the outer atmosphere. It was the kind of tempest that forced most galactic civilizations to retreat to their deepest underground bunkers. Admiral Zexathara immediately contacted the human settlement through their emergency communication system. "Ambassador Hyun Woo," she transmitted, "you must evacuate your people immediately. This storm will destroy everything in its path." Dae-Hyun accepted the call from the observation deck of their forest fort. Around him, his 3 teammates continued their daily activities as if nothing had changed. "Thank you for the warning, Admiral," he replied calmly. "We've been tracking the storm for 2 days. We're prepared." "Prepared?" Admiral Zexathara's voice carried disbelief even through the translation matrix. "This is a Category 5 atmospheric disturbance. Winds will exceed 200 kilometers per hour. Lightning strikes will be continuous. Rainfall will reach 50 centimeters per hour. No structure can survive such conditions." "Our structure can," Dae-Hyun said with quiet confidence. "We designed it for exactly this kind of weather." Across the galaxy, alien observers prepared to document the tragic end of the human camping expedition. Emergency rescue ships moved into position, ready to search for survivors when the storm passed. Betting pools opened on various worlds about how long the human settlement would last before being completely destroyed. But down in the forest fort, the humans were making final preparations with the calm efficiency of people who had planned for this moment from the beginning. So Young checked the flexible joints she had built into every connection point. "The structure will bend with the wind instead of fighting it," she explained to Eun-ji, who was documenting everything. "Rigid buildings break in storms. Flexible buildings dance." She had studied the way the alien trees survived severe weather. Their branches and trunks could bend almost 90 degrees without snapping. She had incorporated this principle into every aspect of their fort's design. Minho was securing his garden and making sure all the local animals knew where to find shelter. He had built special refuges throughout the settlement specifically for wildlife protection during storms. "The bird creatures understand," he reported. "They're gathering their young and moving to the sheltered areas we prepared. The grazers are heading for the lower levels where the tree roots provide extra protection." Dae-Hyun made one final inspection of their storm preparations. The water collection systems had been modified to handle massive rainfall without flooding. The workshops had been secured to protect tools and supplies. Emergency food and medical supplies had been distributed throughout multiple levels to ensure nothing would be completely lost, even if part of the structure failed. Most importantly, they had created multiple safe rooms where humans and animals could shelter together during the worst of the storm. "This is insane," transmitted Surveillance Officer Kethon as he watched the humans making their final preparations. They should be terrified. Instead, they're acting like this is just another day. Dr. Kethamira was monitoring the humans' biological signs from the research vessel. Their stress levels are actually lower than normal, she reported in amazement. Heart rate, blood pressure, and brain activity all indicate complete calm. How is this possible? The answer was something that no other galactic species had experienced in thousands of years. Humans were still connected to their evolutionary past as survivors of natural disasters. Instead of seeing storms as enemies to flee from, they viewed them as challenges to overcome through preparation, teamwork, and adaptation. When the first winds began to blow, the alien observers watched in fascination as the forest fort responded. Exactly as So Young had designed. Instead of standing rigid against the wind, the entire structure swayed gently like a giant tree. Impossible, whispered Zethmar from the Velkari observation post. Buildings cannot move like that and remain stable. But the human fort was not a traditional building. It was a hybrid of architecture and biology, engineering and ecology. Every joint was designed to flex. Every support was designed to bend. Every platform was designed to move with the natural rhythms of the storm. As the rain began to fall, the fort's water management systems activated automatically. Instead of being overwhelmed by the massive rainfall, the settlement actually began to function better. Gardens were watered perfectly, storage tanks filled to capacity. The stream's flow increased, powering the small water wheels that So Young had built to generate basic electricity. They're not just surviving the storm, reported military analyst Nixtar. They're using it to improve their capabilities. When the lightning began, the humans retreated to their safe rooms as planned. But they were not alone. Throughout the settlement, local animals had also taken shelter in the spaces the humans had prepared for them. Bird creatures nested in the upper levels. Small mammals found safety in the middle platforms. Even some of the larger grazers took shelter in the ground-level areas that had been designed to accommodate them. Unprecedented, transmitted Dr. Kethmira. They have created the first known example of interspecies storm cooperation. The animals trust the humans enough to share shelter during a crisis. For 3 days and nights, the storm raged across the forest moon. Winds that would have destroyed most permanent settlements barely stressed the flexible human fort. Rain that would have flooded conventional structures was channeled into useful purposes. Lightning that would have terrified most civilizations was simply weathered by people who had learned to respect but not fear the power of nature. Inside their safe rooms, the humans passed the time by telling stories, playing simple games, and sharing food with their animal guests. They monitored the storm's progress and made minor adjustments to their systems. But mostly they simply waited with the patience of people who understood that some forces of nature could not be rushed. "This is impossible," transmitted Admiral Zex Thara on the second day of the storm. "According to our sensors, they should all be dead by now. How are they not only surviving but maintaining normal psychological function?" The answer was something that galactic civilization had forgotten in its rush to control every aspect of existence. Humans had evolved alongside natural disasters. Storm season, flood season, drought season, fire season. These were not emergencies to ancient humans. They were simply parts of the natural cycle that required different survival strategies. On the third morning, as the storm finally began to weaken, Dae-hyun emerged from the main safe room to check on the settlement. He found exactly what he had expected, a fort that was still standing, still functional, and actually improved by its encounter with the storm. The rain had washed everything clean. The wind had pruned weak branches and cleared away debris. The lightning had enriched the soil with nitrogen compounds. The entire ecosystem was healthier and more vibrant than before. "Good morning," he transmitted to the alien observers. "The storm has passed. We're all fine, and so are our animal friends." Across the galaxy, betting pools closed with unprecedented losses for those who had wagered against human survival. Emergency rescue ships returned to their bases, their services unneeded. Military analysts began urgent reviews of their assumptions about defensive architecture. But perhaps the most important consequence was philosophical. For the first time in galactic history, advanced civilizations had witnessed a species that did not fear natural forces but worked with them. As the twin suns emerged from behind the storm clouds, illuminating the forest fort in its full glory, alien observers realized they had witnessed something that would change their understanding of survival, adaptation, and what it truly meant to be advanced. The humans had not conquered the storm. They had danced with it. 6 months later, the story of the human forest fort had spread across the galaxy faster than any news in recorded history. What had started as a curiosity about strange human recreational habits had become the most important cultural phenomenon in thousands of years. On the crystalline world of Velkari Prime, Admiral Zexathara stood before the High Council presenting her final report on the human camping expedition. Behind her, holographic displays showed images of the forest fort in all its impossible glory. "Honorable crystals," she began, using the traditional Velkari greeting, "what we observed challenges every assumption about survival, technology, and civilization itself." The council chamber filled with harmonic chimes as the assembled Velkari discussed among themselves. Their species had built the most advanced cities in the galaxy, towering crystalline metropolises that controlled every aspect of environment and weather. The idea that anyone would choose to live without such protections had seemed absurd. "Show us the storm footage again," requested Elder Korthval, the oldest and most respected member of the council. The hologram replayed the 3-day tempest that should have destroyed the human settlement. Instead, it showed the forest fort, swaying gracefully in the wind like a living tree, its inhabitants safe and calm while nature raged around them. "Impossible," whispered another council member. "Our best engineers say this cannot work." "Yet it does work," Admiral Zexathara replied. "And that is only the beginning." She activated new footage showing what had happened in the months since the storm. The forest fort had become a pilgrimage site. Representatives from dozens of species had requested permission to visit and learn from the humans. The first visitor had been Dr. Keth Mira, the anthropologist who had been studying the humans from orbit. Despite her species' deep fear of uncontrolled environments, she had spent a week at the forest fort and returned to her people changed forever. "I discovered abilities I never knew I possessed," she had reported to the Galactic Science Council. "Away from artificial environments and constant technological support, my mind became more creative and flexible. I began solving problems through intuition rather than computation. I experienced what humans call peace." Her report had caused a sensation throughout the scientific community. Soon, other researchers were requesting their own camping experiences. The second visitor had been military analyst Nixtar from the Thornian Defense Force. His people were warriors by nature, but even they had always relied on advanced technology and prepared battlefields. The idea of thriving in completely natural environments fascinated their military leadership. Nixtar spent 2 weeks with the humans, learning their construction techniques and survival methods. When he returned, he revolutionized Thornian military doctrine. "We have been thinking about warfare incorrectly," he reported to the Defense Council. "We assumed that advanced civilizations should be dependent on complex technology and prepared infrastructure. The humans have shown us that true strategic advantage comes from the ability to thrive anywhere, under any conditions, with minimal resources." Within months, every major military in the galaxy was studying human camping techniques and trying to adapt them for their own forces. But the most dramatic transformation occurred among the Velkari themselves. Their entire civilization was based on the principle that advancement meant complete separation from natural forces. They lived in climate-controlled cities, ate artificially synthesized foods, and had not experienced unfiltered sunlight or natural weather for thousands of years. Then Kelmira, a young Velkari engineer, requested permission to visit the human settlement. "This is dangerous," the council warned her. "Our bodies are not adapted for natural environments. You could be seriously injured or killed." "I understand the risks," Kelmira replied. "But I must understand how they achieve such harmony between technology and nature." Her 3-week stay at the forest fort changed not only her life, but the future of Velkari civilization. She discovered that her crystalline body structure, which she had always seen as incompatible with natural environments, actually had remarkable properties when working with natural mineral formations. She could resonate with stone and metal in ways that created beautiful music. She could shape crystal formations by harmonizing with their natural frequencies. She could even communicate with certain types of rock-based life forms that existed throughout the galaxy, but had never been recognized as intelligent. "I am not separate from nature," she transmitted back to Velkari Prime. "I am part of it in ways I never imagined." Her discoveries led to a revolution in Velkari architecture and engineering. Instead of building cities that dominated their environment, they began creating settlements that worked with the natural crystal formations of their world. The results were more beautiful, more efficient, and more sustainable than anything they had built before. Similar transformations were happening throughout the galaxy. The aquatic Aquanians discovered that spending time in natural water bodies improved their telepathic abilities. The insectoid hive worlds learned that temporary separation from the collective consciousness enhanced individual creativity and problem-solving skills. Even the ancient collective, the oldest civilization in the galaxy, sent representatives to study human camping methods. "We have spent 10,000 years perfecting our control over our environment," Elder Korth transmitted from his visit to the forest fort. "The humans have shown us that true mastery comes not from controlling nature, but from dancing with it." Back on the forest moon, Dae-hyun and his team had expanded their settlement into a teaching center. The original fort remained as a demonstration of human camping principles, but new structures had been added to accommodate visitors from different species. Each new building showcased different aspects of human survival philosophy. There was a workshop where aliens could learn to make tools from natural materials. There was a garden where they could study sustainable agriculture. There was an observatory where they could experience unfiltered starlight for the first time in their lives. Most importantly, there was a meditation space where visitors could simply sit quietly in a natural environment and rediscover abilities they had forgotten they possessed. "We never expected this," Yoonji said as she documented the latest group of visitors, a delegation of senior military officers from the Thornian Empire who were learning to build shelters using only natural materials. "Expected what?" So Young asked. "That camping would become the most important export in human history," Yoonji laughed. "We're not just teaching survival skills, we're teaching a completely different way of thinking about the relationship between intelligence and environment." Min-ho looked up from his work with a group of Velkari engineers who were learning to grow food using permaculture principles. "Maybe that's what the galaxy needed," he said. "Every other species focused so hard on advancing beyond nature that they forgot they were still part of it." Dae-hyun stood on the original observation platform, watching the twin suns set through the glowing forest canopy. Around him, representatives from a dozen species worked together on various projects, learning not just human techniques but also sharing their own knowledge and abilities. "We came here to go camping," he said to his teammates. "Instead, we started a revolution." The forest fort had become the symbol of a new philosophy spreading throughout galactic civilization. The idea that true advancement didn't mean conquering nature, but learning to live in harmony with it. Camping preserves were being established on hundreds of worlds. Alien species were rediscovering abilities they had lost in their rush toward technological perfection. Military forces were becoming more adaptable and resilient. Scientists were making breakthrough discoveries by combining ancient wisdom with advanced knowledge. But perhaps the most important change was psychological. For the first time in thousands of years, advanced civilizations were remembering that they were not separate from the universe around them. They were part of it, connected to it, and responsible for taking care of it. As Yunji wrote in her final report to the Galactic Council, "The humans did not teach us how to camp. They taught us how to be truly civilized." The legend of the fort would be told for generations to come. But its real legacy was not in the stories themselves, but in the countless worlds where intelligent beings were learning to find wisdom not just in their technology, but in the ancient rhythms of the natural universe that had given birth to them all. Humans had joined the galactic community thinking they had everything to learn from more advanced civilizations. Instead, they had given the galaxy the greatest gift of all, the reminder that the most advanced thing any species could do was remember how to live in harmony with the world that made them possible. The camping expedition was officially complete, but the adventure it had started would continue for millennia to come.